Hello, my name is Madeline Fluckinger, and today I'd like to talk about YouTube's Community Contributions feature, which allowed people to caption and translate others' videos. As you may or may not know, this feature was recently removed from the platform after 5 years, and I'd like to talk about how I think that feature could instead be improved. To start with, I'd like to briefly recap community contributions, what they are, and how they were used on YouTube in the past. Popular video sharing site YouTube has had options to add captions and subtitles to one's videos since 2008. When the feature was initially added, all you could do was upload a basic caption file, and over the years it's made several efforts to improve upon this feature. In 2012, it added support for languages other than English, along with more formatting options. And within the next few years, YouTube gained a web-based caption and subtitle editor, along with the option to automatically time a transcript. One significant change, though, has never been made. The site has never differentiated between captions, which transcribe a video, and subtitles, which translate a video. One big change came to YouTube in 2015 that I would like to talk about: community contributions. This feature was added in an effort to increase accessibility on the platform, and stayed for 5 years, becoming a well-known part of it. Using it, video uploaders could let other users translate their titles and descriptions into other languages, and add captions or translated subtitles. Initially, if a contribution was approved by enough users, it would be published. Although in 2019, after YouTuber JT spoke out about spam issues with popular videos on the platform, this system was altered so that video uploaders had to approve contributions before they could be published. Community contributions saw a fair bit of use over the years, being used for many different types of videos. In my case, I used contributed captions and subtitles for all sorts of things. I practiced my Spanish by watching videos that other people had created Spanish subtitles for, and by writing Spanish subtitles for videos myself. I listened to Japanese music, only understanding the lyrics thanks to English subtitles contributed by community members. Most strikingly, I once watched a whole documentary in Catalan, and I was able to understand it purely because the community had written Spanish subtitles for it. And when I was watching videos in English, if a video had captions, I would turn it on just because captions make it easier for me personally to process things. All of those are things that I was able to get from community contributions as a hearing person and a native speaker of English, which is one of, if not the, most common language on the platform. Imagine the benefit that a hard of hearing or deaf person would get from this feature, or someone who isn't fluent in English. Unfortunately, in July 2020, it was announced that YouTube would be discontinuing the feature, as they had been rolling out a general overhaul of the website, and the community contributions feature wasn't considered worth the work that would need to be put into revamping it. They publicized statistics demonstrating low usage rates and cited general instances of spam and abuse. This announcement was met with backlash, to say the least. A video on the topic by the YouTube team was met with a number of comments voicing users' distaste for the decision, while content creators and viewers alike expressed their frustration at it. An online petition to reverse the decision has received over 520,000 signatures and counting. Despite all of this, though, YouTube removed the feature on September 28th of 2020. I strongly believe that this is the wrong move, and that these decisions were made based on misguided judgments. YouTube cited statistics of low use, saying less than 0.2% of watch time had used community-contributed subtitles in July 2020. But consider how popular YouTube is. 0.2% is still a vast amount of watch time. And in fact, YouTube has also published statistics saying that over 1 billion hours of video are watched each day. If this was true in July of 2020, then that would be over 2 million hours of video watched each day with community-contributed subtitles activated. That is impressive. People were getting a lot of mileage out of community contributions. Similarly, they stated that only 0.001% of channels had published community contributions in July 2020, which sounds fairly striking until you consider all of the small channels on YouTube that barely get any views, along with all the videos that don't include talking and thus wouldn't need captions or subtitles. Given criticisms of those statistics, YouTube later released some graphs and stated that they were the main stats they focused on when making this decision. And if you look at that first graph, that does seem fairly damning, as it shows the vast majority of captions and subtitles on videos were written by the people who published those videos. That blue line at the bottom is the amount of videos with community captions or subtitles. The second graph they released, though, recontextualizes that. Sure, the blue line shows that people watched creator captions and subtitles a lot, but that yellow line at the bottom shows that community captions and subtitles also got quite a bit of watch time, even if it wasn't as much. To me, this indicates that even if there weren't as many community-made captions and subtitles as there were creator-made captions and subtitles, the community-made ones that did exist were getting watched a lot. People were getting use out of them. It's fairly apparent, I think, that YouTube wanted to downplay the use of community-contributed captions and subtitles, when in reality quite a bit of people were using them, and even if there were less community-contributed ones, the ones that did exist comparatively saw a lot of use. That said, one thing that those charts did demonstrate fairly well is that community captions and subtitles were used much less than creator-generated ones. That can't be ignored. Moreover, the JT incident demonstrated that spam and abuse in contributed translations was, without a doubt, a big problem. The system was adjusted so that creators had to review all contributions. That sounds like an improvement, but at the same time, no creator has the skill to know whether the translation is passable in every language, nor the time to thoroughly review every contribution. So then, the system did have flaws. What would reinstatement of this feature bring to the table? Well, these issues are fixable. I believe that they could be properly addressed, and if not eliminated entirely, at the very least mitigated. It might take resources, but I believe that the community contributions feature could be successfully updated and reintegrated into YouTube, and it would see more usage as a result. And I think this is really important. People care about this feature, and a lot of people need it to translate content, because creators often just don't have the time, skill, or in some cases, even the physical ability to make captions and subtitles themselves. Think of blind and deaf users who are often physically unable to caption their own videos. I think that almost everyone would be glad to see it back, and it could even bring new communities to YouTube. For example, say that there is a creator on the platform that makes English language videos and wants to subtitle them in Spanish but doesn't have the money to hire someone to do it for them. Volunteers can step in to translate them, and they are willing to. I've seen it happen when the feature was still active. And once those new subtitles are published, Spanish speakers can watch content they couldn't before. If they share that subtitled content with Spanish-speaking friends and new people subscribe to the creator's channel, use of YouTube could become that much more widespread. Sure, most individual instances of this wouldn't make a large splash, but I think the net effect could be huge. It's all about introducing videos to new places, and this change would do just that. In addressing this, I first want to tackle the stated issue of low usage rates. I think a large part of the reason that videos didn't often have community contributions isn't because the feature was unredeemable, but because people simply didn't think to add them. If the option to add captions and translations was promoted more and was made more front and center in the website layout itself, things could be different on that front. As such, I have several ideas for how to promote the feature more. According to creator Jan Misali, when new captions or translations were contributed to videos, the publishers of those videos just didn't get any notifications, and they would have to go into the subtitles section of the Creator Studio page to check, as seen in this screenshot. This could get tedious, and creators could easily forget to check, with contributions ending up unreviewed and unpublished. What I think could be added to fix this is notifications. There's a notifications menu that you can open to see when people comment on your video. And I think it would be simple to add a notification when someone contributes captions or a translation to your video. Plus, the subtitles section in the Creator Studio could light up with a notification as well for any unreviewed contributions, like so. Arrow added for clarity and would not appear in the final product. When the feature was active, people contributing translations and captions to a video could choose to be credited at the bottom of that video's description. It's a nice feature to be sure, but I think there's some missed potential here. If it were more easily visible, people could see that captions and subtitles were contributed by users like them and that they could contribute too. TED is an organization with a dedicated website for posting speeches hosted by them, and they have a good implementation of this. On the TED website, when the user selects translated subtitles, a little box appears below the video, listing those subtitles' translator and reviewer. YouTube doesn't have such a feature, and that specific feature might be hard to implement given YouTube's website layouts. But I do have an idea for something similar that could be done. Currently, when you switch subtitles, a little box of text pops up in the corner for about 2 seconds, saying the language of the text, before disappearing. See the image on the left. What if this text stayed on screen for several seconds longer and also mentioned any contributors that agreed to be credited? On the right, you can see a mock-up image of this idea. And if enough people contributed to the subtitles that it'd be hard to fit them all in that text box, just write more info in description. And no matter what, in the description, there would be a full list of everyone who wanted to be credited with links to their channels and everything. The idea of all of this is that, as it stood, the community contributions feature was there, but somewhat hard to notice. With this feature, anyone who selected captions or subtitles would be made aware that the people writing these captions or subtitles were users just like them, and that they could write some too and contribute to a community. It's about raising awareness of the feature and making the community and community contributions more apparent. Similarly, I think that having a window on user pages that displays their contributions would make this effect even more prominent, showing people how other users have contributed captions, subtitles, titles, and /or descriptions to videos. This is what a YouTube user page looks like currently. See those tabs below the user's name that you can click on to go to different sections of the page? If I were to include this sort of feature, I would put a tab for it here, and move the search bar a little bit to the right. This tab would lead to a section of the page called Contributions. In it would be a list of videos that person had contributed to, with blurbs beside each video describing how the user had contributed to a video, such as translated title and description into German, or helped write subtitles in Hindi. Users could choose to make this page private or public. By showing videos that other people have contributed to, this would also have the effect of introducing people to new videos that they might not have seen before. So it has a nice sort of double purpose. There were some other concepts I want to propose, in addition to the former three, that I think would raise awareness about not only the community contributions feature, but captions and subtitles in general, and get more people watching and using them. Such as, what if the website's layout promoted videos with subtitles? There could be a section on the YouTube homepage called Multilingual Wonders or some such, where videos with titles, descriptions, and subtitles in many different languages got featured. Not something that would take up the whole homepage, because this would also mean that the specific kind of video that's easier to subtitle would get there faster, but just a small section that would make videos with a lot of translations more noticeable, incentivizing creators to promote the community contributions feature. Additionally, to encourage people to caption and translate videos, a social media campaign could be started. Knowing how many people feel strongly about community contributions, I think this could see a fair bit of success. Some snappy hashtag, like say, hashtag like, caption, and subscribe, could spread awareness of the feature's importance and get people talking, especially if it were to come out right after said feature was re-implemented. YouTube's video recommendations algorithm could also boost videos with subtitles based on how many subtitle tracks they have and how much watch time those subtitles have. I think this would be great as more of an active incentive for creators to add more captions and subtitles themselves, and for them to promote the community contributions feature. And one thing that could fulfill a sort of double purpose, both bringing people together to learn about community contributions and gain more skill to make higher quality captions and translations, is a MOOC. This is short for Massive Open Online Course. It is a type of online course that involves instructional materials like videos and readings, along with discussion forums, where people taking the course can discuss what they're learning and converse with instructors. What I envision is a course centered around YouTube's community contributions feature. The lessons could involve all sorts of things: explanations of how to use YouTube's subtitle writing tool, general formatting guidelines, and even discussion of translation theory. I'm taking inspiration from a previous MOOC offered by the Open University UK about community translation in general. That MOOC involved tasks administered related to subtitling and translation, live webinars with experts, and what I think is most significant, forum discussions where people held conversations about subtitling. One discussion, for example, invited contributors to discuss the question, why translate? While another prompted them to share a dictionary or other translation tool they used. I would like to do something quite similar to this with mine, with the same sort of tasks, albeit with a bit of a shift in focus. My goal with hosting a MOOC is to get people talking about community contributions and learning more about the feature. Because of that, I would want it to be more discussion-based than task-based, with a higher amount of discussions and interactive elements like webinars. People in the original MOOC agreed that they had not only gained a better understanding of translation tools, but also enjoyed the chance to network with like-minded people. So that community element is definitely a strength of this idea. Because community contributions are, well, community-based, a MOOC could really help build that sense of community and get people excited about using community contributions. So, to summarize, this sort of online course has been shown to have an effect in the past, and I want to use it to help raise awareness about the community contributions feature and how to use it, and really get people talking. Admittedly, this is probably my priciest idea, so take it with a grain of salt, but I think that if the budget were there, this could be really big. Plus, Google, which owns YouTube, already has a framework for this sort of thing. It's partnered with the MOOC provider edX, and in fact, as I record this, is hosting 3 MOOCs on the topic of how to search for information online. YouTube also cited spam and abuse as a major issue with community contributions. The feature was indeed very open to this sort of issue, and as such, I want to propose a change to the contribution review system in an attempt to mitigate that. The number one thing here is a better spam review system. YouTube previously had one where a contribution would be approved as long as enough users approved it, but this was very open to low-quality contributions and spam. After a while, YouTube changed it so that the uploader of the original video would have to review any and all contributions before they could be published. In my opinion, neither of these systems are perfect, with the first being too open to spam and the second being too closed, with the potential for contributions to not get through. It's tough to find a good middle ground. As a solution, YouTube is currently planning on adding a feature where video publishers can approve specific users, giving approved users the ability to translate and caption the video publisher's videos. The concept of letting approved users edit captions and translations is great, and I want to expand on it and give creators more options. Specifically, I want to take a leaf from TED Translator's book. They have a system where subtitles can be edited by anyone who applies to be a captioner or translator, but they can only be published if they're reviewed by an approved reviewer who themselves has completed 90 minutes of approved subtitling or captioning. I don't think this exact system is feasible on a more general purpose and larger scale platform like YouTube, but the general idea of approved reviewers could do wonders for quality control on the platform. Here's how I think it should go. Users write translations. Once they're about done, a user hits submit, and they go on to the reviewing process. A reviewer finds the video by chance, through the recommendations section, or maybe through a feature that recommends videos whose translations need work. If the contribution is incomplete, the reviewer can send it back to be worked on more. But if it's near finished, the reviewer makes any changes they deem necessary and publishes the translation. Meanwhile, the word count of any sentence or subtitle longer than 3 words that gets published unmodified is added to the personal count of any user who helped write the subtitles. And eventually, once they hit a specific word count in a language, they can become a community-approved user themselves in that language and can begin to help review. And there would be a similar system for writing captions, though this would have to be differentiated, because making English language captions for an English language video doesn't require the same skill set as making English language subtitles for a Spanish language video. Of course, this whole review system is prone to errors, and not every reviewer will end up being good. It's an issue that's tough to solve, and every solution people come up with will be a balancing act between letting in more contributions and reviewing things more strictly in order to ensure quality. This is why I propose another change that will allow video publishers to make that call for themselves. Video publishers could have different options depending on how open they wanted their contributions to be, picking between allowing anyone, only community-approved users, or only users approved by them to make contributions. Similarly, they could choose between allowing only community-approved users or only users approved by them to review contributions, with an extra checkbox to choose whether they personally would have to review contributions as well. I would also suggest maybe some changes to the report process, because that is a big part of quality control. The report button could be made more visible. Here's an example of what a video page looks like. The report button isn't visible. You have to click on those 3 dots near the bottom right to see it, like so. I think simply putting the report button next to the other buttons, making people more aware of this option, would help things get reported more often. Going along with that, I also want to suggest a change to the reporting process. Perhaps when subtitles were reported, the video uploader could be alerted of it through a notification and via the Creator Studio menu. And then the uploader would be the one to decide how to respond. They would look at the original contribution plus the reviewed and edited one and decide whether to remove or suspend the people who worked on those contributions for their channel, or leave them be. And if a writer or reviewer got their subs reported 5 times, the case would go to YouTube themselves to see what to do about the user. This system would give the creator a lot of autonomy over how to curate their own content, while giving contributions a much higher chance of being reviewed by someone who has the skill to review them, and still having YouTube step in if anything does go awry. Now, I realize that everything I have just talked about is a lot. Quite a few resources would have to go into adding these proposed features. I'll admit up front that I don't fully have a solution to that, but I do want to say that not all of these have to be implemented. I'm proposing a lot of ideas for how to improve community contributions, but they're mostly disparate ideas, where one can be implemented without making others impossible to implement, as long as the main idea of reinstating community contributions is followed. Simply reinstating the feature as it was before as a base shouldn't be too hard. For a while, YouTube's new site design was released, but the old community contributions feature was still there. I think some of these features could be tested by reverting to that state, and then if they're shown to work, the community contributions menu could be revamped for the new design. The proposed site features could also be tested by slowly rolling them out, in the same way that some features on the site already get implemented. This would allow some of these features to be tested on a smaller scale to see if they make a dent, instead of rolling things out to everyone immediately. Now, I know there has to be a certain level of certainty that this will be worth it to add back, because if it doesn't work and ends up being removed again, people will be really upset, and rightfully so. However, it's important to acknowledge that this is a feature where, even if it can't be made better than it was, and I think it can, it already saw a lot of use, and removing it means watch time lost from a whole swath of users. Even just the simple action of adding it back onto the site would do a lot. Think about that. Even with the system's flaws, even with the many things that needed improvement about it, a vast amount of people used this feature, relied on it even, and hundreds of thousands, probably more, were upset to see it go. Community contributions wasn't just a take it or leave it feature. For a lot of people, it was crucial, and the current solution that's planned just won't cut it. Nothing will, except for bringing community contributions back. That's why I and at least 520,000 others want to see it back, and more than that, to see it given the care that it deserves. Thank you for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation and found it informative, and in the case that any people working at YouTube are watching, I hope that you take some of these ideas into consideration.